For me, making art is driven by this inner urge of touching the soul of another human being. I believe that's the ultimate act for me as an artist. So it's something that I strive for. It drives me to keep on searching, to keep on developing, and to get up in the morning and get to my studio and start again.
Hi, welcome to Lofa podcast. I'm John Wentz. This is a new podcast I've been thinking about putting together for a couple of years now, and finally getting a good opportunity, or a good excuse rather, to get it done. Right now I'm in Leiden in the Netherlands at an artist residency at Art House Holland called Project 1606. It's myself with 5 artists, and what I wanted to do, I thought this was a good opportunity to interview each artist one by one. I've been here 2 weeks getting to know everybody, working literally side by side with some of these artists. Maybe you can hear some of them in the background. We've been living in the same house together, almost like a reality show. So I felt this was a good opportunity to put together an idea I've had, which was basically an American living in Europe interviewing European artists. I'm going to be putting out a lot of these episodes in the next couple of weeks because we have 2 weeks left on the residency. So it's far more than I intend to put out once this is over, which would maybe be about 2 a month. So with that being said, I want to introduce the first episode. It's my friend Daan Noppen. Dan, I've been working side by side with him here. He's actually a permanent resident here who helped put together the residency and the Atelier Project 1606. And he's been such an accommodating human being and somebody I consider a good friend at this point. I've had many great conversations about art and about life, so I thought it would be a wise thing to maybe put some of this to the quote-unquote tape. So here is the first episode. Thanks for listening. Welcome to the podcast. So I'm here with my friend and fellow artist, Daan. I already feel bad because I don't know how to pronounce your last name.
Noppen.
Daan
That's pretty good.
Noppen. And Dan is from the Netherlands, and we're here at the Art House Holland near Leiden doing the artist residency. But that being said, I'm going to let you introduce yourself for a second and just who you are and what you do.
Thanks so much, John, for having me, for inviting me for this podcast. I'm honored. Small introduction. I'm a visual artist. My work is, I started drawing mainly, moved on to painting a lot, oil paint, and it's mainly figurative work. I guess, I relate a lot to your work. It's definitely mainly figurative stuff. There's obviously a lot of other stuff that's in there that we will probably talk about. But I guess that's a short introduction for me.
But initially, what I didn't know until coming here is your background, though, is in graphic design?
Yeah. A bit wider than that. I studied design. It was a department that was a lot to do with fashion and interior design. There was a lot of women there, actually. I was one of the first guys.
The only guy in the...
That was funny.
You're breaking ground.
I actually wanted to do which I joined in the beginning, completely different direction, which was more like automotive design.
Okay.
It's one of these ideas you have in your head, and then you figure out what it's really about, and then you're like, that's not for me.
Oh, yeah. Like art.
So I was just looking at this department when they were doing their assessment with the head of the department, and it was called Man and Identity at the time, and there was just girls there, and I remember clearly the head Ulf Morris. He's a German guy, so he designs fabrics like from the texture to the patterns, and really amazing guy. He makes really amazing stuff. But he was saying like, kein Jungs. So I was about to have a look. So he was pretty clear about that it was actually only for girls as well at the time.
What was he saying?
Sorry, that's German, of course. So no boys, please.
Oh, that's
so that was my first introduction. But soon after me, like a lot of guys joined.
So that's interesting. Is that, I don't know if this is a stupid question, but with him saying like no boys, has that been a kind of a cultural thing up until now, that was a thing for women?
I feel almost like it definitely my generation sort of changed that, where it was like, it was mostly girls involved in that kind of stuff, fashion, or I feel like in my generation things really like started shifting, and especially where it was not anymore like you would be in a specific industry or a specific, people were doing cross-border, whether it was I started tapping into architecture, interior design, so many other things. And even now, when we have this discussion, okay, we're currently artists, I mean in the how would you say that in English? So in the non-applied sense. Mm-hmm. But I feel almost the applied arts are really tapping into whatever. I feel there's hardly any borders anymore. And I think when my generation started, at least in college, it was like people were trying to make holes through those areas, at least, So stepping over into another.
Yeah. But prior to that, it wasn't like that. Like
I felt it was very rigid, very divided. And in the stereotype, I mean, obviously, so there were, the only guys that were there at the time was I think two gay boys. So and that totally shifted. Yeah.
Man, so that's what you went to school for, and you worked professionally.
Yeah. So it was more design. Rather than graphic design, it was more So it was called Identity, and it was not necessarily just to do with fashion fabrics, but interior was definitely part of it, and it started to become more conceptual in that sense. So thinking about brands or the identity, as in, to use that in the sense of design for anything. Because I graduated with a short film and an interior architecture project. Yeah.
Oh, you did a short film project?
Yeah.
What was that?
It was basically because that whole digital wave was coming up, digital photography, digital video, and I thought it was great to use that new medium in a design sense for expressing identity about a brand. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So more, I guess it turned out to be a mood film. So it's something that's more common now, I guess. But but it was not at all common to graduate with a short film. No.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's ever since it's been pushing boundaries and doing different things, I guess. The students, I mean, like it became a very conceptual design school in the end.
Uh-huh. Yeah. What was the school?
Design Academy in Eindhoven. It's in the south of the country.
Yeah, Eindhoven. So when we did the workshop, and we'll get into that for 1606 a couple of weeks ago, one of the guys came from Eindhoven. Eindhoven, and said it is the design capital of the Netherlands.
Yeah, and I think the ambition goes further than that even. But sure, yeah, totally.
How do you mean? How does it go further?
Well, I think it was pretty impressive. I think it was Liedewij Edelkoort at the time when she became director there that she really started pushing the Academy worldwide as a brand, and also a statement about design, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Students started to go to Salon di Mobili in Italy to show their work. So it was really also about spreading ideas, and instead of just a school where you would learn design as a trade. I think a lot happened in those years.
Elaborate more. What do you mean on? You were saying spreading ideas.
I think it was one of the first academies that started to think like that conceptually about design. So cross-border, definitely, and
so meaning like more than function design. More
yeah,
than
exactly.
Function.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, vehicle for many other things. I slowly moved away from that. So I definitely started in applied arts, and I started a studio after that, which was a lot to do, like you said, with graphic design and branding for companies. Slowly moved into photography and film after that, and then just decided to make personal work only.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we talked that you did photography quite a bit, and I thought it was interesting because I was looking through your website. I've looked through it before, but just to catch up before this, and it still talks more about, I don't know if it's an update issue, but your emphasis is on photography and drawing. Is that still correct?
That's one I have to change, man. Totally. Okay. I would say now that it's about drawing and painting, and then
drawing and painting.
Big emphasis on painting. Yeah, that's a big exploration right now.
How did that? Because that's interesting. Because I feel like for me it's a little backwards, I guess, in a sense. Because I find myself wanting to head towards those things now, more like film and such, and design. And you came from that, and now you're into painting, you've been drawing for a long while, and then into painting. Like how did that happen? Like what's the relationship between your design background? How did that translate? I mean, you did a little bit of film. How did that translate or transfer into drawing and then eventually painting? Like why? And photography. What's the bridge between those for you? Because for me, they're very different, and I can't make a bridge between them. I don't know how they lead one into another.
Yeah, I guess that is something that definitely came out of that kind of thinking that we were just talking about, because it's like, okay, so you can look at photography and film as it is a trade, or how would you call it, like a specific thing you learn how to do technically correct, and then work in that industry. But to me, I didn't see much of a difference anymore between photography and film, other than that it means something different technically, but because that's what happened, right? When everything became digital, you could say, okay, so with 1 second of video, I have 25 frames that are still photographs.
Right,
you know?
it's just another photograph.
So that immediately blended in my head, where it was like more thinking about the image rather than the technical side behind it. And I guess for me it was as simple as in, I loved to work with lighting and how things can look in the sense of a photograph, not photographically, but I also felt at some point that the technical side was really getting in between. Mm-hmm. So literally, I guess you could say the camera between what I wanted to express and what I was doing. So, and especially with film, which is in that sense a big difference to photography, because the amount of resources that it takes to make a film, that I just started to get a problem with that. Really.
Yeah, and it's really, film is a collaborative thing in the end, right?
Sure.
Yeah, the resources, the people you need.
Yeah.
So.
And it's a great process. I mean, I worked with people in film on many aspects, so in the production and also afterwards, post-production, so compositing. I guess that's, to answer your question a bit, that's sort of where it started. So I felt very comfortable in the compositing part. So you do the production, you have all this material, and then you can you start, I mean, that's still how I use it now. For me, Photoshop is like sketching. So I will have some photographs and maybe I will even put them together or grab something from somebody else or somewhere else and sort of try things as a fourth stage or a pre-stage to what I would want to paint or draw.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to say real quick too that people are going to probably hear doors shutting and people talking in the background. We're all living in a house together, and that's just part and parcel to the situation we're in. So I apologize in advance.
Farm doors.
And so how long were you focusing on drawing? And was there a bleed over? So like, okay, so I'm understanding how they lead into each other, but when you started doing the drawings, were you still doing photographs? And not meaning just photographing the models for your drawings, but were you still doing photography concurrently with drawing? Or did there was hard cuts into the other? And how long were you just drawing? Because your drawings are like I'd seen your drawings before, but now seeing them in person, especially some of the ones like your apartment, are phenomenal. And the scale, the technique, and everything is so amazing. And it seems like one of those things, it's interesting to me because I'm like, man, to draw like that, you'd have to be doing it your whole life. And it kind of seems like you're like, okay, I'm going to do photography. Okay, now I'm going to move into drawing. And I'm just going to kick ass at all these things. Like what, yeah, you know my question.
Yeah, well, it's funny the last bit you were mentioning because that's something that struggles in my head a lot. Like sometimes I feel I'm doing too many things, so it's like I guess
I do too.
Yeah, you know, and then when do you fruit of them, you know?
Yeah.
If you do something for 20 years really intensely and well, and then that's gonna start to pay off at some point. No, I always feel like I pull out too quickly.
Right.
But that is what I remember doing that with drawing though. Really making that decision like, okay, let's do something really well and focus on that.
And how long did you focus on them? I mean, you're still doing them, but what was the...
Yeah, I started drawing, I guess, intensively in 2015.
It's really only been 4 years?
Yeah.
You talented bastard.
And well, I did a bit of drawing before that, but then it's like making a couple of drawings a year, so it doesn't really that's not really making...
Were they bigger ones? Because some of your drawings are pretty large scale.
Yeah. That's also where, I guess, what in the end pushed me to start painting, because it kind of becomes this impossible thing where you spend like 200-300 hours on a drawing. Mm-hmm. So it's not even scalable, you know, like if you want to make a living at some point. Because I had the luxury back then, to answer your other question, to phase one thing out and start the other one kind of smoothly. I mean, like I was running a design studio, and then with my partner, who basically made it into the company that it is now, which is much more a software company, and I basically stepped out of that and kept on freelancing so I could build that down, which was where I still was doing commercial photography and stuff like that. So I also had the luxury of really making what I wanted to make and not think so much about, is this going to sell, or find your voice, I guess, you know, find your style. That was 2008. But yeah, that was so minimal. But I really made that decision in 2015 to jump and to intensely start to draw. And that's a big difference. I would say that to everybody who even wants to like do something. I guess it's for everything, but someone once said to me, okay, you know, just start drawing 15 or 20 minutes a day. Yeah. And you will not believe what happens. So,
yeah, because doing some is far better than doing none, right? I mean, it applies to anything.
And that repetition. So instead of doing it one day a week for 8 hours, it has a bigger impact doing it for 20 minutes.
Short bursts. Yeah, consistency. Yeah, because too much time will elapse between that 1 8 hour. I remember that in school. Like painters would do that, like work 12 hours on a Sunday, and then that means they thought they can take 5 days off. But it's like that the story of the tortoise and the hare. Like you're much better off to paint for an hour or two a day every day than 12 hours one day a week. Yeah.
Were you able to quickly be were you quickly able to sort of paint for a lot of hours a day, or
No.
did you have to build it up?
I built it up, and I can still remember the day that I felt like it was a very noticeable click in my brain when I was able to go long. And I was living in Oakland, I was in my apartment, and I had a max, and this is pre-internet almost, so I could only had a concentration of about 2 hours, and then I would get antsy, I would be social. And I remember one day passing that 2 hour mark into the 3, into the 4, and I worked for like 7 hours straight.
Wow.
And it was that drastic of a change, and like I felt it in my brain, like, oh, okay, this is what it means to really work at something, you know. And then it's been the same ever since.
Funny, yeah, because I think it's something people don't get right away. You know, it's almost like reprogramming yourself to be doing that. And even then, I mean, people think if you're an artist, that's what you do all day. But then there's so much else.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, it quite literally is reprogramming the brain, I think. Man, I had a bunch of thoughts going while you were talking. Why? So one thing that was it seems like your background, because you're using these marketing terms, brand, and you did commercial photography.
Yeah.
Were you trying to get away from that? Does that bleed into your work now?
Well, for me, I think that, because you were saying you just started 215, I did, in 2008, I did 2 years in a row, quite a few residencies. And this was like nothing really concrete as an artist, because for me it was just searching whatever. So I did very different things. But for me, the most difficult thing was to shake that off, because it's like
the commercial.
Yeah.
With the mentality, or
it's applied. So you're trying to come up with a creative idea for somebody else, and now it's like tapping into yourself. You know.
Is that what kept you going on that path then? Or you're like, man, this is much more fulfilling to you as a person to not come up with ideas for somebody else?
I kind of started to feel frustrated by it, because I was less able to adapt. That's why I stopped doing it also, I guess. Because maybe otherwise I would have continued. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
But definitely less fulfilling.
Yeah.
Because I had these ideas about how I wanted certain things to look, and there was no place for that in something like advertising or branding.
Oh, okay, I see. So you almost felt like you had to. Also, you had these ideas that wouldn't fit into this other world you're working in.
Yeah, I guess at the time I was not so much thinking about, hey, there's really something I have to say. I don't think I was in that space yet.
But your ideas were more fine art oriented, maybe, than they are
style-wise.
commercial?
I definitely, yeah.
And sorry, some of my questions, I'm trying to like let things flow organically, but I know there's certain questions that people are interested in. So then, like at this time, then what artists were influencing you during the turnover?
Well, I guess.
I mean, and I should say, like I'll do a proper intro, but we're in Leiden, which is the birthplace of Rembrandt.
Yeah.
Which you're known for. Is that?
It is.
Were you? Was the history here influencing you of fine art, or were you looking out elsewhere? Who were the people?
It's funny, because there's a big disconnection somehow with that in my brain, because I've always loved Egon Schiele and Klimt. No, it's almost one thing for me. Those two persons. But I think the thing that really started pulling me when I was making that, or trying to make that jump, was a lot of stuff in game art.
Really?
Yeah. So concept artists.
Yeah, concept art.
Yeah. Also the way they were painting. I think it was digital already. And yeah.
Do you do any digital painting?
I'm just picking it up now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because that didn't feel natural at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know, I grabbed a pencil, and that was the closest thing I could find, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it took me a long time. I mean, I'm looking at your work, and it's so expressive. But to be that expressive, I think that's one of the things that took me the longest. Because I always tend to do the comforting thing for me, which is like work really neatly.
Yeah,
I guess it's keeping control of something. So,
It is definitely control, because to get outside of your comfort zone, you do have to let go of control, and that's a scary thing, especially if you're very precious about your artwork.
Well, that's a good word, because I think that's a corner I put myself into after drawing so many years. Because you put so many hours in it drawing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You stop taking risks.
Yeah.
Or you try to avoid them, and so the drawings become very refined and very. But it's not like you would do something like that on a morning, no? Have a huge brush and make this stroke.
Yeah.
Though I felt that was what I needed to do at some point. No.
Really? So back then you even gravitated, like thinking in the back of your head that you're going to lose these 200 hours of photorealism, basically, and you want to move into something more expressive?
Yeah, but I had no idea how.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's funny, it's really bizarre actually, because if I went to see my partner the other day, we have a lot of contact still, so my business partner, and he has one of my drawings hanging in his office, and it's this portrait of Ai Weiwei.
Oh, okay.
And it's pretty big actually. It's like, I guess, 1.5 meters high and 60 or 70 centimeters wide. And it's done with pencil, but it's actually quite expressive. I mean, if you look at the beard, it's kind of...
Is it on your website?
Yeah.
What year? I'm looking at his website right now.
Maybe there's still one.
2014?
No, the one before.
Here?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you...
Man, these are cool. I don't know how to scroll through.
Can you scroll the other side?
Oh, cool.
So...
No.
Oh. It's
it?
not really working nicely, is it?
What's wrong? Oh, here we go.
Yeah, there it is.
Okay, nice. Yeah, that is more expressive.
So it's kind of bizarre for me, because when I saw that, I was like, ooh, from there I kind of went more realistic, more refined. So there was already that expressiveness a bit, but I kind of went the other way. So for me now, deciding to paint is because last thing I want to do is like make a painting that will feel like what I was doing when I was drawing. Because I feel for me it's a vehicle to find that. So my paintings I want them to be different than my drawings.
Right, yeah. Do you see it as like man, I'm so worried about using pretentious terms on a podcast. I'll blame that on some friends of mine, the Waiting to Dry guys. Is it a completely, like, because I think of mediums as like a vocabulary. Like I remember reading, like for like graphite, I think it was, the painter Antonio Lopez Garcia, the Spanish painter. He had a thing where he said like his drawings, or drawing in general, he sees as more psychological. And one is because it's naturally in black and white, but also there's something about the medium. And then he sees painting as something that's closer to life and just more descriptive, not as psychological. And there's arguments you can make on either side, supporting or disagreeing. But to me, that translates into like, it's a different vocabulary, or it's a different language that you can express different things. They're separate from each other. Is that how you're seeing it? The same way, or? Yeah,
though I kind of feel I totally used it the wrong way also.
What, painting?
Well, I mean, why would you make a drawing that's like that big and that's that labor intensive, Because
I don't know. I'm looking at that picture of you like this with the the giant head and a pencil. I guess it gives me anxiety.
Yeah.
That's a lot of hours, man.
Yeah. So I guess it brought me something, because I went really deep, like in the sense of trying to master the medium.
Okay.
But also at some point I just felt that it didn't make any sense to try.
Okay, that's where I want to get, because you just said something interesting, like why you just questioned yourself, like why would you do that?
Yeah.
Why did you do that? And what made you change your mind? Because obviously, if you're going to put 200 hours into it, you justified it in your head. You're like, okay, I'm going to do this.
Well, I didn't know how to do it otherwise because I didn't know how to paint.
Yeah.
And I just love monumental works.
Okay. So that was the first
and
thing.
that I set on doing that, and it's funny, all my friends were like, why do you have to make these big works? Just make some nice small drawings. And I was like, no man, I have to do this. But
Yeah,
I used the wrong tools for it.
Not really though. I mean, there's no wrong tools, right? I mean,
Well, it turned out interestingly because I think it was 2015.
excuse me.
Boom magazine picked up a few drawings I made and Beautiful Bizarre, and I think also because it was so out of the ordinary, because people weren't doing that, like making those big drawings. One or two people then were doing it. So I mean, now you see it a lot more, but so I guess it kind of brought something.
I love the idea that you just didn't know any other way to do it. Like, I'll just use a pencil.
Yeah.
So then, I mean, is there anything more to it? Like, why now? I guess I'm kind of fishing to see if there's other influences that make you question why do this anymore. Things like the obvious ones. People work faster now, and I think a lot of that. And I really want to avoid talking about social media as much as possible, but because of the internet and stuff, people work faster. Like, were there any outside influences, or sometimes in people's life? I have a busy life, so I have to paint quickly, things like that.
Well, I mean, I obviously, especially Claire, my girlfriend, really strong on that. At some point, you also obviously have to think about, okay, I want to do this full time, so I should start thinking about how to make a living with this. So, and then
so that, pragmatic. There's very practical.
I wouldn't say that was really the decision, but because it's incredible how much faster you start to become if you draw so much. Like, if I compare to what I was able to draw back then and now, that's like a huge difference. But the scalability, it's in the sense of scalability in the sense of how much can I produce, and you cannot ask like 10,000 euros for a drawing because you put so many hours in it. That doesn't work like that. So
right.
But that was not the motivation for me to start painting. Was like what we talked about before. It's to find a new vehicle in which I was being able to really become expressive again. And then I was starting to get frustrated with drawing because I would hang my drawing sometimes on a group exhibition and I would see these paintings. I'm like, holy fuck, man, that intensity of color and texture, I cannot achieve that with my pencil. So.
Oh, okay, so you're feeling limited.
Yeah. Because I was putting emotions and certain intensities in a pencil drawing, but it was so minimalistic that if you would enter a room and you would see the drawing hanging on the wall, how much, I was asking myself questions, how much of that is actually translated to the person seeing that, Wouldn't there be another way of, a much more powerful way to do that? So, and I felt that so often with paintings that I would see, that it was much more of that.
The ability to communicate and be expressive. Yeah. I agree. I mean, drawing drawing in general has its own thing, but I think the limitations are nice, but nothing beats oil paint at the end of the day.
Yeah, I believe you, man.
So I want to move on a couple things. Like, first, and this may be too forced to even ask it this way, but I find it fascinating that, and this could just be your background, but you're using, like I said, pointed out before, like a lot of marketing terms, and obviously that's your background. My experience, I've been in Europe for 2 years, and one of the most refreshing things to me is there's hardly any talk of marketing. It's almost all about art. People are still trying to figure out how to get their art there and make money at it. But the crux of the conversation revolves around art making, art ideas, which my experience in the US is completely flipped. We talk so much about marketing and, all that stuff, the terms branding and yada, yada. Do you find that well, you haven't been to the U.S., but you've talked to a lot of Americans. Is there an emphasis on that here, or is that just your background? Like, how do you see Europeans, and maybe even just the Dutch in general? Is there a push for marketing? Is that at the forefront, or is the art definitely at first?
I would say, especially in this country, definitely not.
Yeah.
And in art,
is that good or bad?
In art, it's like, I don't know. I guess in art, it's really like even ugly to go that direction. People will put off people, and they.
Yeah.
I think it's our generation totally changing that, but.
There's definitely a generational component. But I told you like a story I had like the first time moving to Paris. My girlfriend and I were in our studio, and I had lunch with an artist I just met, and all he was talking about was his ideas and the emotion of painting and all this stuff. Not once did he even say the word Instagram or things like that. And to me, it was such a refreshing and maybe overly romantic view. And so my American eyes are like, I see that now. I see Europe through those glasses. So I don't know if that's just me being naive, or if you think actually Europe in general is less on that marketing end than America is. Or does it even matter?
I would say yes. But then it's also some stuff you can't deny. I mean, you're living in Paris right now, right?
Yeah.
If you walk just across that bridge that takes you from the Notre Dame to over the water just to the direction of the Jewish neighborhood.
Le Marais?
Yeah, Le Marais,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah.
There's so much culture, there's so much of that romantic idea of art that sort of you walk through literally. And well, maybe you cross McDonald's, I don't know, but to me
there's one there.
I
use the Wi-Fi.
Okay, if I'm there, that stuff doesn't cross my mind either.
Yeah.
To me, it's still very separate things, by the way, because I would switch to, if I'm in the studio, I'm not thinking about what am I gonna make that's gonna be good for a brand or my brand.
Right. And it goes back to what you were saying earlier. That's the reason you got out of that life of yours, anyways.
Yeah,
so.
and I mean, if it has to go back to that, really, that I'm gonna start to think about what is gonna sell, then I better go back to what I was doing.
Yeah.
Because the art world is quite.
Because it was better money.
Exactly.
It's a better paycheck.
Don't try to find it here. No.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so that I think is a good segue then into what we're doing here and what you guys are doing, because not that the marketing thing, because it is, you guys are with the Art House and with the 1606. There's a very refreshing business side to it that you guys are pushing, to me, to where it's not this. I don't know how to explain it. Let's just go into that. Like
sure.
You knowing Daniel Martin, how did this evolve, and what is it that we're doing right now, this inaugural project 1606?
Yeah, it's funny because for him it started really like how we found each other by sending like a message on Instagram like, hey, I like your work, let's have a beer.
Sliding into the DMs.
Yeah. And he had this idea at one point, if I know 4 people in a city that respond, that want to do a beer, I'll just fly out and go. For him, it was at the time searching a lot. Like he came to a point where he was stuck in his atelier, like where to develop next, where to go next, and he would start talking to other artists and find out, everybody's dealing with the same stuff, but also like...
Interesting.
He was finding out that, it's so interesting to start doing stuff together, and that's the same with Santiago.
And so let's say, we'll throw it out there because it'll be on other podcasts. So Daniel Martin is a painter that most people should know, who helped start 1606, one of the co-founders. I'm already forget Santi's name.
Santiago Pani.
Santiago Pani is a friend of yours, and you guys are all working together on this.
Yeah, because he pointed that out most clearly. He was saying, because he really looked into it in history. I mean, like examples of people that pulled it off on their own, and they're just
pulled what off? It's because a lot of people probably don't know what you're talking about.
Well, it's like obviously everybody's that's serious about art is trying to make an art career.
Right.
So really make a punch, like
Through community? You're trying to make that a career through community? Is that the idea?
I guess it's maybe also the stuff that we look at, right? I mean, well, it's literally when I found your work first. I mean, I showed it to you on my Pinterest board, which is quite old. But your work is in there, and I mean, at some point, you know, when you start out, the first thing you ask yourself is like, okay, I want to do this. You know, I want to make this into a career, and how am I going to get to that place? You know, that people will find my work inspiring, and you want to be part of that list, you know?
Right, right.
Sounds weird I'm saying it like that, but I felt it like that.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's when you guys got together and decided to do this. That was part of the motivation behind it, was connecting to other artists and then to learn from each other and motivate each other.
Yeah, we found out very quickly like what you share, it's literally like 1 + 1 is 3. I mean, it's so multidimensional.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's so enriching, and then there's so much stuff, you know, like that other people are much better at than you, so you can really, really help each other as well. You know?
Oh, nice. It's funny because as soon as you said multidimensional, I'm like, man, I forgot he has a background in physics. I didn't even talk about that. You're so multi-leveled.
Well, yeah, that's another thing. I mean, I love painting, man, but I would eventually want to really go beyond that, and I don't know, I would love to have that people can walk into this little universe, so that goes beyond drawings and paintings, you know. I mean, if I look at what Walter, one of the other artists that's here currently with you guys, to make sculptures, you know, to get in that realm. I just have too many stuff I like, man.
Too many ideas in too little days. So the three of you guys eventually got together and had this idea for the Project 1606. Now, there's 3 components. You have the Art House Holland, Project 1606, and the plant. What are the differences? And I know we already talked about, like, there was too much branding, so you had to reduce the size of that umbrella. But what are the 3 separations? What are those things in and of themselves?
I think it's more like a legacy thing, because Art House Holland, it's super confusing, I know. Art House Holland was there first.
Right. So then that Art House Holland is the residency program. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And they've been doing it for like 3 years?
Yeah, and before that, another 3 years in Madrid, so altogether 6 years.
Oh, 6 years. Okay.
And basically the plant is the 3 of us, our atelier. And it's like we're kind of like the permanent residents here.
Right. Yeah.
Next to the guys that come 1 or 3 months.
Okay.
And then 1606 is that project that, you know, when we came up, like, wouldn't it be great to try and get a few people of those lists, you know, the people that we admire, and try to get them here and work for a month.
So 1606 is more or less a subsidy of Art House Holland. That was your personal residency that you guys created. Yeah. Under the umbrella of Art House.
Yeah, Holland. I mean, we have a lot of fun artists coming here, but we imagined, wouldn't it be great for 1 month in the year to have these really, really at least what we think are the most inspiring artists we can think of, and have them here.
Wow. Thanks, man. Thanks for the invite. But now I feel
Thanks
bad.
For coming over, man.
I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I haven't lived up to that. I didn't know that was the idea, to have these inspiring artists. I'm like, man, I feel like I've just been complaining and not working hard enough.
It's been amazing, man, so far. It's been a knockoff for the last 2 weeks. Obviously, what's to come, but
I can't believe it's already been 2 weeks. But so what's I've been wondering. I didn't even ask anyone yet. What's the 1606? Where does that come from?
It's the birth year of Rembrandt.
Oh, shit! Now I'm embarrassed. Okay,
that's awesome. Well, I mean,
that's super cool. Okay, what a great title.
And we just thought it was nice because that has that reference to what you were talking about before. You can't deny it, you know.
Yeah.
That's what we build on. But we wanted to have something that you could totally charge again, no? It's not something that everybody will know immediately or think about. So
okay. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful, man. I like that. And then with the residency itself, it's been it loosely defined. Like we came into this with no strict parameters.
Yeah.
And was that the idea for you guys, or how much of this? Let's be completely transparent. How much of this was figuring it out as we go along? Like you guys had a set idea, like okay, we're going to invite artists here, we're going to do this.
Then, we were all also like, what are we gonna tell these guys?
So
we have to do this. And then I also remember doing a few art residencies, and there was so much stuff that was planned, and people we're gonna go to this exhibition, do this and do that, and it just felt too much. Like I wasn't even able to get to the point where I wanted to feel where I was, react to it in a painting or a drawing. So that was another thought. Yeah. Yeah,
it almost feels like art camp or something. Like you got to do these activities.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And so, and as we're like now, like that we're at this 2-week mark. Now we're hitting this point where there's a lot of talk. Like we're collaborating with. Well, I say we. I'm as a resident, but you guys as business partners, permanent residents, collaborating with Paint Guide. And there's these ideas of expanding out digitally. In fact, to me, it seems like there's a lot of emphasis on social media and communicating digitally. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Was that part of the intention from the beginning? Because we're doing like Instagram live things. There's gonna be a live seminar. The podcast wasn't part of the initial plan, but it was for me. Like, were these things there from the beginning as you guys were brainstorming about what to do with residency?
Yeah, we totally feel that's a big vehicle.
Okay.
Like, the stories, I mean, you're in it right now. So what we experience here, to share that with other people, I think that would interest me if I wouldn't be able to physically be here, to at least sort of get a sense of that.
Yeah.
I think those stories are really interesting, when it's like exactly what we're doing now, this conversation where you exchange and, you give me an insight in how you look into the world, and to add that visual aspect to that we nowadays can on social media. I think, that gives me so much looking at stuff.
So that's something you want to give back to other people?
Yeah, I think that's just so valuable with what we're capable of doing now with social media, at least for me. So
yeah.
And that's where we started, but we did this small event, sketch event in this summer here, and it was the first tryout, literally, because we believe in the strength of both, so online and offline.
Mm-hmm. Offline would be an example, like the in-person workshops, like things like that?
Or literally, your project here now.
Oh, okay, I see.
Because Paint Guide was also looking for that partner to have a physical thing somewhere, happening, really, where you get together.
Okay, I didn't know that, because they don't have that for themselves. So that's kind of their tie into this, is now they vicariously have a brick and mortar, so to speak.
Yeah,
which would be
exactly.
the plant.
No, exactly.
Okay. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and Santiago has great ambitions for that. I mean, he's already setting up one other hub in Mexico, because that's the dream eventually, to have all these, not necessarily ours, but I mean, to have these hubs around the world. I mean, Walter's thinking about doing one.
Yeah, Walter's got his workshop. It's funny, every time I hear this now, I remember, because Andrew, he was jokingly saying he feels like he's joining an art cult. So I just think with these different locations, it sounds like an artistic version of Scientology or something that you guys are mapping out. But no, that's amazing. And so then the idea would be you would be doing in these locations residencies in each one.
Yeah, and I mean, not even necessarily a residency, but it's more like a creative hub where you can go to and
I like that.
And do your thing.
Yeah, whatever your thing is.
Yeah, I mean, sure. No, but literally, like, let's say you want to go to a place for a few days, have a certain experience.
Yeah.
And I think it's so great if you would have these hubs around the world that function like that. And
Have you guys, among the different artists, well, not for this project since we're the first, but you've been around with the Art House Holland, and I'm wondering what you guys would think too, like moving forward, is this something open to only painters and sculptors, or like, have you guys thought about working with filmmakers or even, I don't know if musician would be like, I'd think more of like sound creators and stuff like that.
No, there have been, yeah.
Really?
This summer there was a DJ. He plays at a lot of festivals, but he was working on his own material.
Oh, that's cool. And that's something you guys would consider in the 1606. Are you guys going to move forward with that title, by the way? Sorry, I keep saying it.
No, that's something
Is that dead?
No, I mean, I just explained it. Why it's so complicated.
Yeah.
No, but we should come up with a solution for that. So I don't know what that solution is going to be, though.
Okay. But that's something you guys would consider for this residency that we're
I think it would be great to do this once every year. Yeah.
Yeah. But having different disciplines, like you're open
Totally.
to
Totally.
poets and writers and musicians.
Yeah, we had a writer here last year at the normal residency. I just think it's man, of course. I feel that.
That's cool.
Yeah,
a lot around it, and I don't think people understand what it is.
So this, I love live drawing, and sometimes you have you have a live model, but a lot of times you don't, or you can't afford it. And there is this subreddit called Gone Wild, and there's even a few other ones that
Gone
are
Wild. Gone Wild.
Yeah, that's it. And people post erotic or to an extent even pornographic pictures of themselves. Pornographic selfies.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they even post like really good photographic material. And I at some point was like, wow, for a morning sketch to start working, that was great material to sort of warm up.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like using an image that is not made by me or not even owned by me, I should ask for permission. So I started using these images and started talking to the people who made them, and they thought it was great that I was using the images to sketch, and they were super interested in even seeing the result. And we started with some of them. I had this really amazing dialogues, and
so it was just a back and forth between you and the person initially. Okay.
And some people would even send me images that they wouldn't put on. And this slowly sort of started to become this project where I was really just drawing those images from Reddit, and I felt like it was becoming a project, even to where I think now it could be like a really interesting thing for a book that I want to do.
Yeah, absolutely could.
That's sort of in a nutshell what the project is about.
I don't know, this may be kind of a stupid question, but what I found kind of interesting is when I'm going through, so you're looking through these drawings, and I mean, like the first one or two, it just looks like a nude with a slightly erotic pose. And then there's one of a girl that's got like, she's almost fisting herself. She's got 4 fingers deep in her vagina. But then amongst all these, there's a gigantic heart-on. And I thought it was great because you weren't selective. Like I think anyone a male that would go on this, there's all this talk about the male gaze, like would just stick to the females as a comfort level.
Yeah, sure.
And then initially I didn't want to ask. This exposes my comfort level because I didn't know, like I didn't know where the pictures came from when I was watching them, so I didn't know if this was a project between you and Claire. And so then I'm looking at that heart, I'm like, okay, that's Dan's unit. Do I ask? Like, what I don't know what to say about your boner, man.
No, it's from a Norwegian guy.
So that's interesting. So there's because I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say it's just a cultural thing, but I feel we'll just put the culture thing aside. Like men wouldn't do that. I mean, it has such like homoerotic implications, thing like that. Why did you draw that? Why did you use that as subject matter?
Well, for me, it was literally because of going on about what I said before. I used to censor myself so much.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, I guess in the beginning, I was making these drawings for myself. So I wasn't even going to show them to anybody. So within that mindset, I decided to draw the stuff that I would most opposed to, I guess.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
When you look at it from that censoring point of view. And then it's what you were saying, like, so, okay, you can draw a nude woman, and then you it's hard to say whether it's erotic or even pornographic compared to an erection, which is obviously clear, no? When it's
pretty clear. As clear as it gets.
And that's, so I would start looking for things that I would just want to try out, and that was definitely one that I never done before, and I was like, yeah, man, that's something I have to try.
Yeah, and is this, because it's so different from your other work?
Yeah, it is.
Is this something that you're going to keep pursuing? Is this like a side project? Is this something you want to be your main focus? Like, you as an artist, where do you see this fitting in your body of work? Is this the thing you want to be known for?
No, that's the thing. I mean, for me, it was already pretty exciting to even put it on that exhibition, because like I said before...
Is that the first time you had shown
Yeah,
this?
yeah. Because for me, it was just something I would keep in a box, and it's my
you
personal...
You were so calm at that opening. I would be a bundle of nerves. I'm a bundle of nerves, like, showing any new work, but if I was showing that work...
It's funny, because I think it's in the end going to be that, a side project. Because I just felt for such a long time that I wanted to draw stuff like that. And I just, Claire was saying that, just go and do that stuff. It seems like you have to go through that and find something that's behind there.
Yeah.
And it's, for me, the thing I guess most is about how liberating that project has been. So also finding out that it's probably not really gonna come back literally in any of my other work. So I guess it's gonna be that project on its own. Yeah, and that's fine. So I felt like it was something I really had to go through. So maybe the implications are completely philosophical or psychological, as you say. But
both, as I say, yeah, psychological and philosophical. Especially, like I said, I mean, for me, seeing a straight male drawing homoerotic.
Well, I mean, yeah, I had an
pictures
interesting conversation with this guy. He at some point he was checking out whether I was straight or gay.
So that's so for him, that could even be like a form of flirting. Like, for him, that was a totally different experience than it was for you, where you're, you know what I mean? You know what I'm trying to say?
Sure.
Like, so he could have been like, I mean, in a way, even that was exciting to him, and it probably was.
Yeah, I guess to some people it is. I mean, that's probably also why they come. I mean, you find the right audience in the sense of when we're talking about Gone Wild. It's people there already.
Yeah, it's called that for a reason. Yeah,
that's what they're looking for.
But that one, I think, is also particularly interesting because it sounds so funny to even try and like be intellectual about this, but since the cell phone came along, man, we've been in the era of the dick pic, and that's something for women that's so, I can't even imagine. Like, I've tried to imagine when I hear women I know that complain about it. I try to imagine what that would be like, and you can't even put yourself in that. Because I don't receive vagina pics all the time. None of us do, but girls have been bombarded with those things. So to have a guy sending you that and you draw it and put it in an exhibition, to me, there's just so many different facets.
It is anyway so layered. I mean, I remember a photographer saying that to me once, where he felt like the nude, whether it's photography or even in art, seems to be hijacked by pornography.
Yeah, it is. It's completely taken over.
And then that is even so layered. But what I found interesting, though, is that I don't share those images because I feel very, people trust me with that. But, if you would put the image next to the drawing, there's something funny happens, because I guess it's also the way it's drawn, but it becomes something else.
It does, yeah.
I mean, he even shared that with me. Like, so he would... I think he shared it with two of his friends, female friends, the drawing, and they were like, okay, so yes, this was a dick pic, right, as you're saying, but why am I fascinated by this? And they were not seeing the picture but the drawing. So something happens the moment you translate it. Well, I don't have to explain you this, of course, but
Yeah. No,
and
but
that
it's an
kind of
interesting
fascinated
point.
me because that seems to be like another layer there.
Mhm.
It's obviously interpreted, no? Although
Yeah.
it's still very realistic. But
Yeah. No, it is
that-
fascinating. I remember somebody that I used to work with, teach with, we got into this discussion, a debate, and I forgot what he framed it, but he was trying to make a point that we were drawing from a live model, and that as soon as we take that out, and I'm probably ruining it a little bit, but he's like, we're distributing pornography. And seeing it in the same sense that like, because like for when you're working for models, some models will let you take a photo, but with the kind of expectation that you're not going to share that. And if you found it on the ground, let's say you at a live model session, you take a picture of the model to use later, right?
Yeah.
The model's nude. If you were, let's say you're riding home and you drop that photo, when somebody else sees that, their inclination is pornography.
Yeah.
They're not going to be like, oh look, a model, like an artist sees it.
Yeah.
But you take that drawing, and because of the medium, because of the transfer, because of the human hand, and if you drop that same thing on the ground, when somebody picks it up, they're not like, oh look, pornography. Or even that person, they're like, there's a work of art, and there's something in that translation that I too can't, I haven't been able to really put my finger on. I think it's multiple things. But this person was trying to argue that they're one and the same. If I draw a naked woman, I mean, basically this person was taking the Instagram argument. If I draw a naked woman, it is pornography, if I'm very realistic about it.
Yeah.
And I disagree.
No, totally. But then I agree.
But even when it's sexual, like what you're doing, drawing a big erection, it seems less pornographic when you translate it to graphite and pencil.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess that was, one of the things I was also discovering and finding out. But then, it's even then what you're saying, it's so layered. It's definitely not that simple, but it's becoming even more complicated now.
Okay, we're on this now.
Okay.
And I was trying to look at it, I knew there was a limit on this. So we're going to have to use this for the remainder. Or, let's do something. Oh, please save. Okay. I'm going to open up a new one real quick.
Sure.
How do I do that? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's still going.
That one's still going?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now we're 5.
Right here, ready. Ambience delay. Oh, wait. Sorry about that. I was really trying to get on the ball with it. Without losing the rhythm. Okay, and you're saying?
And I think it's getting an even more complicated layer because now, at least on social media, for example, technology is trying to keep track of what is pornography or nudity or art or, and that it's funny what you were just saying, like that so much is almost like relative, even from who views it.
Mm-hmm.
And you gave the example of the artist or just the bypasser, and that becomes clear on social media because you see these. I forgot what it was, but like at least pretty famous nude paintings that suddenly got banned from social media, where we've been looking at them for 30 years in a museum. It's like,
and you can't post them now.
Yeah.
On
and
Facebook
that I think
Instagram.
what it shows clearly, or to me at least, is that it's super complicated. I get a lot of things. I mean, people saying they are searching for that freedom, but also people consuming social media, younger people, that shouldn't be necessarily confronted by that yet at a certain age. But even people just want to relax, browse through social media at work, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I get.
Yeah, with the work you're doing, I mean, that'd be different than just posting like a classical nude model.
Yeah,
Right,
sorry. Yeah, no,
yeah,
sure.
okay.
No, but I mean, what some people would really want to share on social that you right now can't. I think it's anyway become way too complicated to even think of skill or like a solution to that. So I'm very curious on where
To the
it's
problem
all
of
gonna
what
go.
nudity and what's considered
what you
pornography.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I have a hard time accepting. I mean, I agree with that, but I have a hard time accepting that our base operation now of any nipple is a bad nipple, though, is the proper way to approach it. Like, that's where we're at now. And then even then, you can go within that because it's not just the nipple. Like, have you seen this project? Like, it's weird to me that you can't post a drawing of a naked woman, her top, right? But if you blur out the nipple, you can. But then there was a project of photographers who were posting just nipples, and then that's okay.
Yeah.
So then it's not the nipple, it's the boob, right? It's the under boob. None of it makes any sense at all.
No.
So I think that our base level of operation is really, I don't know, needs to be reconfigured. Because I agree with you, like, yeah, that's why on Reddit you have NSFW, right? It's like, okay, give me a little warning of what I'm going to watch, but come on, man. A little boob, a little butt. Never hurt anyone.
Yeah. No, yeah, totally. But then that's, I mean, in some cultures it is, you know. So I guess...
What do you mean, it is what?
That is super not normal or not...
Oh, sure, yeah. But I disagree with it, you know, personally. Yeah, some don't want to show knees, but
yeah, no.
it's art.
So maybe it's. I mean, well, this is maybe a good, you know, artificial intelligence, you know, could help us out here.
Making a boob that didn't exist. Actually, I wonder. I mean, that's an interesting thing. Like we were looking the other night at those pictures. Walter was showing us portraits of people who don't exist. Right,
Yeah.
they're AI created.
Yeah, right.
So if they created a naked person that doesn't exist.
Yeah, man.
No, that was
pretty
stupid.
Freudian.
Getting Freudian, yeah. No, that was really ridiculous. All right, maybe we'll wrap it up here. Anything else?
No, I'm unless there was something else you wanna.
No, I was good.
Feel-
I went in a lot more than I thought it was.
We went to quite some extended corners.
Yeah, you feel good about the conversation?
Yeah, totally, man.
Okay, killer.
Yeah, no. Thanks again so much for having me, and I think it was a great conversation.
It was. Cool. Thanks, Dan.
Cool.
And I'll say right now, too, thanks for being so accommodating, man. You've been like the most accommodating person, allowing me to work next to you side by side.
Thanks, man. Well, that's been the greatest honor, so
Killer.
cheers to that.
Cheers, bro. Thank you. And here we go.